Control of flowering rush. Success after 50 years of trial and error. Presented by Steve Howser, General Manager, Aberdeen-Springfield Canal Company. The Aberdeen-Springfield Canal System is located in southeast Idaho and consists of approximately 180 miles of canals and laterals to provide irrigation water to about 62,000 acres. Our typical annual budget for aquatic vegetation herbicide is nearly $500,000. This slide shows three different photographs. The first photograph shows the culprit, flowering rush. The second photo is Aberdeen-Springfield Canal Company's J lateral, one of our most heavily infested. This lateral looked like this for over a mile. This particular photo was taken just prior to chaining operations. The third photo is of Aberdeen-Springfield Canal Company's I lateral terminus. Flowering rush was a problem on the last half mile of this lateral. Like most irrigation canal systems in the West, Aberdeen-Springfield Canal Company has been plagued with aquatic weeds for its entire history. Prior to the advent of aquatic herbicides, there were only two methods of control: dewatering and mechanical removal. As irrigation transitioned from flood to sprinkler, mechanical removal became particularly problematic due to the amount of vegetation left suspended in the water, which mostly just clogged pumps. Consequently, mechanical removal with chains, as illustrated in these videos, was essentially abandoned in the early 1960s, and it was replaced with aquatic herbicides. But the herbicides had no effect on flowering rush, which was first identified on the system in 1968, but had been present for several years prior. By the early 1970s, flowering rush had become a problem in almost every lateral and portions of the main canals. Some small effort was made to remove the flowering rush mechanically with excavators and ditch cleaning buckets, and in 2001 we brought back chaining in an attempt to restore flow in the worst infested laterals. While we were able to restore flows, chaining makes a huge mess and is terribly labor intensive. This slide illustrates the difficulty in removing the flowering rush from the canal after chaining operations. Unfortunately, chaining operations only restore flow within an irrigation season. The flowering rush always came back the next year and spread to every lateral. This photograph shows J lateral 1 year after it had been chained. In the days when chaining was our primary method of vegetation removal, we never really had a problem with flowering rush, or cattails for that matter. But once we started using herbicides, which had no effect on the flowering rush, it rapidly became an issue. Beginning in the early 1990s, Aberdeen-Springfield began specific trials aimed at controlling flowering rush. These efforts continued until 2005, when we finally gave up. Throughout this entire time, we were forced to revert to mechanical removal, either with chains or with excavators and ditch cleaning buckets. These two photographs show the results of two of the chemical trials for Magnesite H and Clearigate, a copper-based product. As you can see, some of the vegetation was yellowed above the water, but it soon returned to full green and continued to grow. The flowering rush infestations were so bad that we even tried an additional method of mechanical removal, one that we hoped would restore flows without disturbing the rhizomes: underwater mowing. It didn't work either. In 2008, I learned of a local excavation contractor who was developing an implement that would remove vegetation from canals. I invited him to try it out on my flowering rush problem. He brought me the aquatic vegetation rake, or AVR. Did that time.
I think it's because there's a hole right there.
Yeah. The prototype for the AVR, shown here in 2010 cleaning Aberdeen-Springfield's I-lateral, was mounted on a mini excavator. The entire length of this lateral's infestation, approximately 1/2 mile, was removed in 4 hours. Very little vegetation was left in the water, and the AVR removed the rhizomes as well. Maximized Water Management's second prototype for the AVR was designed for a 315 cat excavator and was 16 feet long. This photo shows the 16-foot AVR cleaning flowering rush from the sides of Aberdeen-Springfield's low-lying canal. We initially ordered a 10-foot custom AVR for our 312 cat excavator and later purchased this 16-foot AVR as well. This photo shows the 16-foot AVR removing flowering rush from the end of our low-lying canal. The last 2 miles of our low-lying canal, downstream of that canal's terminal spill, appears to be the perfect habitat for flowering rush, and the AVR turned out to be a perfect solution. The spring following our purchase, we found a second use for the AVR that we didn't expect. Each spring, when we bring water into the canal, it carries tumbleweeds and frozen foam. This mass of frozen vegetation can create weed jams at structures and threaten the banks upstream. Historically, we took care of this with employees and weed rakes, often spending several hours in freezing temperatures with 6 to 8 workers busting hump to avoid overtopping the banks. If the jam was frozen solid, some locations were helped out with our backhoe and the thumb, as shown in this photograph. We found that the AVR, stationed at each structure, could remove the majority of the weeds in a very short period of time, with no water backup and without the need of a squad of men with rakes. Not only that, the excavator could then follow the leading edge of the water, cleaning floating debris as it traveled down the canal. The more we used the AVR, the more uses we found. This photo shows two AVRs working on opposite sides of a major drain to remove cattails and even small shrubs and some small Russian olive trees. We've found that the initial cleaning passes with the AVR provided about 95% control for 4 to 5 years, and within the first 5 years of work, we essentially removed all of the flowering rush from every infested mile. After 8 years of managing flowering rush with the AVR, we have effectively achieved complete control. When we do see reestablishment, typically at the edge of the water line, a few passes with the AVR takes care of it. With the addition of the tilt rotator on our new excavators equipped with GPS and position sensor technology, the AVR provides us with a precision tool to map and manage flowering rush on our entire system.